Hello and welcome to Chapter 10 Homework in Economics Textbook Micro Benefits Brief Principles of Microeconomics. Mankiw is the author. And we are still on the 10th edition. Question 1. First section is just discussing how you would put the status of 6 individuals. Drop down. Are they employed? Not in the adult population? Are they not in the labor force, or are they unemployed? Now, that information is on page 188 in your textbook, so I'm not going to give you all of it. This quick read, and this proves vital for information later on, but of the 6 individuals here, you can reasonably assume who is falling into those categories. We have one individual, Yvette, who is 12 years old, so we're probably not going to have that in the adult population. So go ahead, read that over in your textbook and should be able to answer those. Labor force participation rate. Again, that is in your textbook on the next page. And the participation rate, labor divided by adult population, so you would pick that. Now, the reason why the first section is relevant is it's going to ask you, what is the labor participation rate of this economy of 6 people? Meaning, how many fall into the adult population? You divide that into how many are in the labor force. Then we have the unemployment rate, which is also on page 189. Number of people who are unemployed divided by the labor force. So if you were doing this somewhere and you were getting into more complicated issues, you'd have to figure out the labor force before you got to unemployment. Now, which of the correct statements describes a discouraged worker? And still staying in our textbook, that is on the next page. That's unemployment rate. And we are on page 192. Someone who's all but given up looking for work. They're able to work, but because they've been out for quite some time, they are no longer looking. Looking at our tables once again, and you might remember we've talked about this in the past. The table is on 193, and we're giving this 6 different descriptions of people who are unemployed: U1, U2, U3, etc. Looking at U4, unemployed, discouraged, divided by labor force, everyone there, and discouraged. The reason why there's a little bit of a difference is the divisions between 6 categories will and will not have certain things, such as discouraged workers. So the official unemployment rate is actually U3. So using the information that you have available, you would figure out civilian population over 16, and you start to do the math. That does not necessarily include discouraged workers. The official is again U3. If you're using U4, you're going to do the math once again and come up with something a little different. If the Bureau of Labor Statistics were to include discouraged workers in the official rate, and then you'd figure that out. Unemployment type. And I want to go back a page 190 in your textbook. Cyclical. No, 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 no. Okay. Moving a little forward, sorry. 195. Structural, frictional, and you're just going to look into the definitions. Frictional, you're between jobs. Structural is as there's insufficient work for everyone who wants a job. In between jobs, maybe you're looking for a new position, maybe you're just graduated and you haven't quite found that yet. Structural, that may be the problem of what you are doing employment wise doesn't exist anymore. There are no more blockbuster stores. True or false? The current unemployment is at the current economy is at its natural rate of unemployment. I'll let you figure that one out. Just remember the natural rate is a suggestion. There'll always be unemployment as well. Okay, suppose the world price of tobacco falls significantly. Demand for labor among tobacco producers in Kentucky will increase or decrease. Demand for labor among cigarette manufacturers in Virginia will increase or decrease. Temporary unemployment results from sector shifts as one described above is categorized as. Book doesn't get into this as much. Cyclical is in there as well. Seasonal refers to you are hired to, say, pick pumpkins. Well, now we're talking about October and November. Seasonality. Working at a packaging place or a delivery business during the holiday seasons, they may hire temporary work. That's seasonality. Some government wants to reduce the type of unemployment. Which of the following policies would achieve the goal? Check all that apply. Increasing benefits offered to unemployed workers through the government's unemployment insurance program. Would that reduce unemployment? If you're an economist, that'd be pessimistic. By giving people more benefits, that might be an incentive not to immediately go back to work. So using that type of logic. All right, consider the labor market as defined. Supply and demand plotted on the curve. Use the calculator to help you answer the questions. You'll not be graded on any change you make on the calculator. Considering the following table, supply and demand, wage is at $15. Indicate whether the wage will result in a shortage or a surplus. So what they're going to ask you to do, that's a little slow. All right. The labor demanded, meaning what the employers need as far as people, is 450 positions. The supply are that of people who are trying to get a job. Remember, you're on the other side of the equation. 750. And this is the debate about minimum wage. Well, you have more people wanting a job than who are going to get a job. And so you will start to actually add these type of information bits in here. How many thousands of workers? And is this a surplus or shortage in the labor supply? Well, you can kind of see which one it is. And check all the statements that are true. Is in this labor market, the minimum wage is $11.50. Would that be binding? Meaning, is that going to be something that is stuck? Would that actually result in something beneficial? You could check that out. It is slightly below equilibrium. Equilibrium looks like it is hitting right about $12. You would still get a little bit of an excess because some employers would be willing to pay a little bit more. I'll just leave you with that tidbit. Contrast union labor laws in 2 different states. We're doing this again. Negotiating it is $10 an hour. Again, the demand is 600. The supply of people who are willing to work is 1,000. We have too many people. At this wage, how many union workers would be employed? That would have to be about 600. And what happens when you have wages in the eastern states, supply and demand? It's going to ask you to play with the graphs. The wages are going upward. The demand would be going in the opposite direction, downward. Yep, the supply would increase quite a bit. The demand would go in the opposite direction. And how are you going to know which one it is? Well, if wages are here, the only way you're going to get the wages to go up would be to move it backwards or to the left. And the demand obviously would shift down. So they both would have that lovely little tidbit. I hate these things. Okay. So that's where you should be. Basic economics, wages go up, fewer people are employed. Why might some firms choose to pay workers a wage above market equilibrium, even if the supply of labor in the market, check all that apply? This one immediately sticks out, reduces turnover. If you're paying $15 an hour and everyone else is getting 11 or 12, you're not going to have that much turnover, or you should be less than the industry average. Higher wages encourage workers to be more productive. And you look in your textbook, that is one of the things that it states about that. Devil's advocate as it relates to unions. And that starts on page 203. Okay, let's get to the next one. Taking its time. And 20 questions. All right, the amount of unemployment that the economy normally experiences should be something, and it's not these. According to the BLS, a husband who chooses to stay at home and take care of the family is, he's not discouraged, he's not employed. I'll let you pick out between the last two. A little bit of calculations, the numbers in the millions. The labor force is, again, talked about that in the last assignment in your textbook. calculate that. Again, unemployment rate, those who are adult population, those who are working, should be able to do the math on that one. It's not total population. Unemployment rate would not include those who are under 16, and it would not include those who are not looking for work. That would be the total population. Obviously, the 12-year-old is not included. And still asking for numbers and calculations. Labor force participation rate, how many are in the labor force looking for employment and who are participating. Coal miner who's unable to work for so long has stopped looking. He is in a adult population, or she. So they're not employed. It's either A or D. Which is true. Labor force participation rate for women is rising. Yes, there is a graph on that. And that is on page 191. You have to look up for the other ones, but one of those answers right there. The minimum wage law tends to, one of the defaults in economics is there are less people working because equilibrium has not been reached. It is actually above equilibrium. So the one that talks about that, although that does read, has no impact on it long term, as it is set above competitive equilibrium. Which of the following types of unemployment results from the wage being held above competitive equilibrium? It is not frictional. It's not cyclical. If for any reason a wage is held above competitive equilibrium wage, still talking about that. Let you go through that in your textbook. The theory of efficiency wages is again on page 203, 203, and that carries on for the next 2-3 pages. Which of the following government policies would fail to lower unemployment rates? Now, establish your working training programs. Nope. Establish employment agencies. Nope. So I'll let you pick out of the remaining 3. Sectorial shifts tend to raise which type of unemployment? It is not frictional. It is not D, so I'll leave you with the other 2. Which of the following an example of a reason why firms might pay efficient wages? That one is in, again, your textbook. It is section 10-5, and I'll let you just read into that one. Not a very difficult question. Some frictional unemployment is inevitable because I'll let you read that in your textbook without getting into details. When I'm trying to figure out is whether or not I want to mention E, but I'll let you read on that. It's not a very difficult question. Unions might increase efficiency in the wages. Efficiency. In a case where offset the power of a large company and a firm in a company town. That is an example of when a small town has one major employer and they control most of it. It is on page 202. Extreme case of a market power is a company town which a single firm does most of the hiring in a geographic region. So this is a reason why you might have a union. So I'm kind of giving you hints. Which of the following statements about efficiency wage theory is true? Okay, I'm going to let you go ahead and read that. Paying above competitive equilibriums tend to cause workers to shrink their responsibilities. Yeah, I'm not voting for that one, so I'll let you pick out the other three. Unions tend to increase the disparity between insiders and outsiders by let me make sure. Union collective bargaining. Insiders. Outsiders can respond to their status in one of two ways. They can remain unemployed or wait for a chance to become an insider and earn a higher union wage. What I'm reading that is on page 201. So you can take a quick glance at that and answer that question. Which of the following types of unemployment would exist even if the wage is at a competitive equilibrium? Since there will never be complete disappearance of employment, frictional, going again between jobs, structural, again, your job is no longer over there, unemployment dues to a union, not causing them on that one, unemployment due to efficiency wages. We'll let you figure that one out. And finally, unemployment insurance were so generous that it paid laid off workers 95% of their regular wage. That would discourage people from working. The official unemployment rate would probably be well above where it should be because people would not go to work. There'd be no incentive, at least for a little while. So, all right, there's your background. Hopefully that helps. Giving you page numbers and some hopefully useful advice. I will see you in the next one.